Hey book friends, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to today's video, which is my April reset video. And so I did this last month and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of taking the place of my TBR type video, as well as kind of book hauls and anticipated releases, because all of that is included in this video. I also like to talk about maybe like readathons, things I want to participate in. And so it's a bit of an all-inclusive look at my book plans for the upcoming month. So let's just hop in. So hi, my name is Angie. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, welcome back, all the things. And so like I was saying, this is my April reset video. Guys, I can't believe it's already April, but I'm really excited for it. I'm in need of spring. I'm in need of just kind of a new season. And so as I was looking at April and I'm looking at the things I could participate in April, I looked at the Magical Readathon, I think it's called, that is put out by G over at Book Roast. I'll link her down below. I look at this every year, you guys. It's such an involved readathon and it sounds so fun. But then I realized that I just don't read like that. I honestly look at the drive and I get all sorts of confused. So I'm gonna keep it a little simpler. And so instead I'm doing a readathon that is hosted by Gwen on her Patreon. I've joined her Patreon. I really enjoy it. I'll link her down below. She's fantastic. We're doing a bit of a book subscription clear out challenge. And so I won't give you all the details because I mean, honestly, you should just go join her Patreon. It's fantastic. But I will share with you some of the books I'm thinking of for that challenge. And it's a very straightforward challenge. It's basically to look at your book subscriptions and try to read some of the books that you've been collecting. And granted, I'm only subscribed to Book of the Month, which I really enjoy Book of the Month. I do have some fairy loot, but they were more gifted to me by my wonderful sister. So I'm not gonna count those. We're just gonna do Book of the Month. So that's my plans for what I want to participate in. So that leads very nicely into my TBR. So let me share the one book first that I have on my TBR that isn't involved in this challenge, but it has to do with the reading challenge I run on Discord. And the April prompt, I believe, what is the April prompt? Oh, right. It is that there is a color in the title. And so I am reading this book, The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. Now, how I'm running my reading challenge this year is I have pre-picked all of my books for all of the prompts, and there is an open buddy read for anybody that wants to participate in it with me. But obviously you can just kind of pick your own book with a color in the title, and we have recommendation tabs and kind of a what are you currently reading, and we check in with each other. It's just a really fun group, so you're always welcome to join. It's down below. So that's the plan for the reading challenge. And like I said, I'm reading this book. So this is the third book in the Day of a Bad series. It's the last book in the trilogy. I am loving this trilogy. I have been on such an S.A. Chakraborty or Shannon Chakraborty kick lately. I read the Amina book, Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, last month. And spoiler, I loved it. Look for my wrap up where I can talk more about that. But I just love the way she writes. I love the way she draws me into her worlds. I love the characters of her world. Both Amina, which I'll talk about, but also in this book, which follows Nari and Dara. And in the first book, The City of Brass, Nari is in ancient Cairo, and she is, I think, an orphan, but she's basically a con artist who accidentally summons a jinn warrior named Dara, and all sorts of things happen there kind of right away. And then it becomes apparent that she should probably be brought to the City of Brass or the City of Magic. And so that's what happens, and she kind of gets involved in the city in various ways, and that's kind of a basic setup for the book. But it has gone to so many different places, and it's so intricate, and my favorite parts are the characters and some of the family relationships, and there's just so much going on with this book. And a number of people have been reading it with me in Discord, and we're moving on to the third book this month, and I'm so very excited. As I'm holding this up and my arm is hurting, I realize this is a very big book, 730 pages. So join me if you want. I know that's a harder one to join because it's the third in a series. So anyway, let's get into then the books I have tentatively picked for this clear out challenge. And really there's one that stands out, and it's the one I wanted to get to most. You guys, I cannot believe I have not read this yet. It's the newest Kristen Hanna, called The Women, and I have heard nothing but good things about this book. You guys, it sounds fantastic. It focuses on women in Vietnam, And I think that just sounds so interesting because this our main character of Frankie, she signs up to be, I think, a combat nurse. So kind of on the front line. So she's obviously not in the war, but practically, right? With probably some of the things she'll see and the horrificness of being a combat nurse. Anyway, so it follows that, and I believe that's part of the story. I don't know how much of the story is taken up with her experiences in the war, but I think some of the main themes are female friendships, and so some of the friendships she makes during her service, and then how that transcends to when they all come home and how hard it is when they come home. I mean, Vietnam was such a political war, and then just women involved in Vietnam, that was just, I feel like, a challenging time for women and women's rights. And so I heard really good things. I mean, mostly. I think there's some people who didn't like it, but that's fair. I feel like that's normal. I really love Kristen Hanna's writing. I feel like it's always very gripping and emotional. So that one is for sure. And so that kind of set my choosing of the rest of the books that I wanted for this TBR, because I was looking at my shelves, which maybe I'll pop up a kind of pan of my shelf, because I have one shelf that is dedicated to book of the month, and I just decided to kind of pull some similar colors is how I decided to do it. So this one is also very red, and it is called The Maid by Nina Prose. And so this was popular, I feel like, a couple years ago, but I think it sounds really good. It's about this main character, Molly, who I feel like she might be on the spectrum or something like that, because she is described as struggling with social skills and misreading the intentions of others. Her grandmother has recently died, and her grandmother was kind of her ability to kind of understand the world, and so she's a little bit adrift, and now she has taken a post as a maid, and I think there's a murder, and then she is maybe a suspect, something like that. I think it sounds good. I think it sounds really good. So I'm excited to finally pick this up. It's been on my shelf for a while, so I want to get to that. Another one that's been on my shelf for a while is Kai Ke, I think is how you say it, by Vaishnavi Patel. I think this sounds really interesting. Now, I don't think this is like a mythology retelling. I think this is just telling the story of this girl who is a princess in a kingdom, and she was raised on the tales of gods, but yet there's some challenging things in her family, like her dad has, like, I think banished her mother or something to that notion, and the only worth she has is kind of in a marriage alliance, if you will. And so she is expected to kind of just play her part in this kingdom, and she is trying to decide if she wants to do that. And then she kind of uncovers these texts that were read to her by her mother, and she discovers kind of more strength and power, and instead of being what it says, like a weak princess, she is now a warrior, a diplomat. I'm not quite sure if that is the extent of the plot, where she just kind of comes into her position, but I think it sounds really good, and so I want to read that one. Another one that is on my potential list is The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. Now, I think this sounds great. This is more, I think, fantastical in nature, but it kind of gives me National Treasure vibes, which is the current obsession of my house and my kids right now, as we're watching all the National Treasure movies. Raise your hand if you love those. But anyway, this is about this girl named Nell, whose dad was like a famous cartographer, which I think is like a map maker or collector. And they have this falling out over a map or something like that, and then I think he passes away. I'm not sure if it's like mysterious or whatnot, but then she finds a map of some sort that seems like maybe people are looking for this map, so there's some kind of mystery around it. I think it sounds fantastic. I don't know exactly what it's about, but I'm ready to kind of go into it with just that much information. Okay, and then the last thing on my potential list is this one. It's another historical fiction, which I haven't been reading a ton, but as I was scanning my shelf, my book of the month shelf, this one still sounds really good to me. It's called The Circus Train by Amita Parek, I'm not quite sure how to say that. I haven't heard really anybody talk about this. I'm not quite sure. I just think it sounds interesting. It's about this girl who grew up in the circus. Her mom is like a famous illusionist or something like that. And we're talking 1938. And she is wheelchair bound due to a polio infection in her childhood. And so she's not like participating in the circus. I don't think she is, at least. And then there is this boy that comes along that starts to be trained under her mother. and they are like a team of illusionists or something like that. But then World War II starts, right? We're talking 1938, so World War II hits, and then they are commissioned, the mother and that boy, to work in the Jewish front camp, I think, the camp that was used as a front to show that the concentration camps really aren't that bad. They even have like circus performers and things like that. So they are working there, and it kind of leaves our main character by herself, and she has to figure out what she wants, what she needs out of life. I think that's what this is about. I think that sounds really good. And so those are the book of the month books I chose for April. I chose 5, but I don't think I will get to all 5. I think I'll probably get to 4, but it gives me more of a choice and selection so that I don't feel boxed in by my TBR. I like to have a little bit more than I need. And so those are my choices for April, but there are some anticipated releases of books that are coming out in April. Although based on my spot in line at the library, I don't think I'll be getting to them in April. It might be end of April, early May, and that's okay. So it's really 2 books. It's the newest, Abby Jimenez, and so I don't really read romance, but I have really enjoyed Part of Your World and Yours Truly, and so I'm curious about her newest one, which has something to do with summer. I'll pop up a picture here. I can't remember what the name is. It's something about summer. I think it has to do with these 2 main characters who are kind of unlucky in love. Like basically they date someone, and then right when they break up, that person finds the love of their life, like over and over and over again, or something like that. I don't think I'm getting that confused with another book, but I think that's what this is about. And then they meet up during the summer, and I think there's a little bit of fake dating for some reason. Now I'm thinking, I'm not sure if I know what this book is about, but I feel like I don't really need to. I feel like I really enjoy her writing style, and it would be a fun kind of summer read. So that's coming out, as well as The Familiar. Is it Familiar or Familiars by Leigh Bardugo? I think this sounds really good. It's like more of a historical fantasy, which I've been loving. This has to do with Spanish history during the time of like the Spanish Armada. So when Spain was fighting against England, it had to do with like the Protestants and the Catholics, I think. We just covered some of that in homeschooling. And so I think that's what this time frame is. And there's this girl who is, I don't know, maybe an orphan. She's working for this mistress as like a servant of some sort. And she has like a bit of magic. And I think it has to do with like luck. Like she brings luck to whatever she does. And so then her mistress finds out and wants to utilize her to kind of like increase the wealth of their home. But then I think the secretary of the Spanish government or something like that becomes aware of her and wants to utilize her in this kind of big war thing that is going on. And so I'm not quite sure if I got any of that right, but I think that sounds fantastic, especially since we just covered it in our history for homeschool. I think that's always fun. I like to read about historical time frames. I'm not sure how Leigh Bardugo is going to do kind of a historical fantasy. I don't feel like much of her previous writing that I have read has anything historical to do with it. So we'll see, but I'm really looking forward to it. I think that sounds really good. So that's my readathon, TBR, anticipated books. Oh, my book haul. So I also like to just kind of tack on the end here some books that I've picked up. So there's 2 books that I picked up myself, and those were my book of the month choices for March, right? Yeah. So March was when you could get the book of the year. I'm not sure if you can get it another month, but they have these books. That's part of your perk for being a book of the month member, is you get the book of the year. And this was the only one that I either didn't have, or there was one I'm just not interested in. The Shark Heart one I wasn't interested in. So I picked up Wayward, which I feel like has had a lot of buzz, and I am tentatively interested in it. I feel like what I don't understand about it is like its genre. Is it historical? Is it fantasy? Is it literary fiction? It feels a little more literary fiction based on what people are describing it as, and I don't usually go that direction. So I think that's what's held me up on it, but it is about 3 women during 3 different times, and I'm not sure if there's any like witchy, I think there's kind of some witchiness about it, so that was a bad description, but I do have it, and now I'm interested in reading it. I think that could be a really cool fall book. Another one I picked up was the one I was really interested in. So this is A Fate Inked in Blood by Daniel L. Jensen. So this says Saga of the Unfated Book 1. So this is Norris-inspired fantasy romance. Now, we'll see. I haven't read too much fantasy romance. I've been a little bit more interested in it, but I have yet to really dive in and see if I like that combo all that much. But this sounds like it's about this girl who is in a bad marriage, basically, and something comes up where her husband betrays her and she has to kind of fight to the death against this man named Bjorn, which is the son of the king or something like that. But she has a secret, and that's that she possesses a drop of the goddess's blood, which makes her what's called a shield maiden. And I think that fight reveals it, and then she then has to, I don't know if it's a train. I know she somehow becomes associated with the sun, and I think it's a little forced proximity. That's the romantical interest, I believe. So we'll see. I'm excited about it. It sounds really fun. So those are the two I picked up myself, and then I do have a couple books that my sister so kindly gave to me. I love it. She's the best. And now those ones, I have two here. Another fantasy romance. Maybe I'll just talk about this one. This was on my radar. I feel like a lot of people are recommending this if you're curious about fantasy romance, which, like I said, I am. And that's The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. Yes, Broadbent. And so this, I think, is like a human vampire romance, and this girl has been raised by the vampires. Like, she was, for some reason, rescued by the vampire king when she was a child, and she's been raised in this society. So it kind of gives me a little bit of the, what book did I read? The Cruel Prince, where she was like brought in as a child into the fairy realm and had to prove herself. That's what this has, that feeling, like she needs to prove herself. And then there's this like tournament where she, I think, enters, even though it's kind of silly that she's entering because she obviously is not as strong as a vampire, but I don't really know. So that I'm looking forward to actually trying again. Well, I'll let you know. I'll let you know how fantasy romance goes. It's just so popular. And yes, I'm jumping on the bandwagon, and I'm acknowledging that. And the other one that she gave me was the newest Emily Henry, Happy Place. So I've only read the Vacation one by her, and I didn't like it. And I've been told to read Beach Read, and I do intend to. I think that sounds way more interesting. But she gave this to me, and so I might try it, and it's quite the color. It's really pretty. And so I think this one is about this group of friends who are all getting back together, and they're all like coupled up, and I think some of them are getting engaged, and it's this like celebration. We'll all get together and we're all happy, except one of the couples, our main couple, is not together anymore, but I think they have to pretend to be together for this friend group reunion sort of thing. That's my general understanding of the book. Okay, the last thing she gave me was this whole series of Fortuna Swan, which I always thought it was Swan, Fortuna Swan, but it's by KJ Sutton. This first one's much smaller than the fourth one, but we'll see. I'll read the first one and see if I like this series. From what I understand, this is about a woman, Fortuna, who has like nightmare magic, I think, something like that. But yet her brother disappeared 2 years ago, and she's trying to find him. And then I think she runs across this, who is it? Powerful fairy who seems to know something about her brother and his disappearance. And I think in order for him to tell her, she has to marry him. I think that's this book. I could be wrong. But I heard about this on Becca's channel, Becca in the Books, and I was influenced, I'm not gonna lie. And so, yeah, when my sister was giving these away, I'm like, sure, I'll give them a try. So I have these now on my shelves, and I love having like more of the series, because when I love something, I love to just kind of read it all the way through, if I can. And so that's the hopes with these books. But that is what I have for my April reset. I just kind of get excited for the upcoming month. I like to anticipate all these different things. And so let me know down below what you're involved in. What are your plans for the month? What are you planning on reading? Different things like that. So I love hearing from you guys, but that is what I have. So give the video a thumbs up if you like these kinds of videos, and subscribe if you want to. Otherwise, guys, I'll see you in the next book video. All right, take care.